Hi, how you doing? Justin here. Today we're going to be looking at playing our 3-note per string scales as 16th notes. Now, if you've been following along the first couple of lessons in this little Legato primer series, you've been practicing the scales using hammer-ons and flick-offs as triplets. Now, triplets in 3-note per string scales are fairly comfortable because there's 3 notes on each string, so you're going to be picking with the metronome click each time. So 1 triplet, 2 triplet, 3 triplet, 4 triplet. Sorry, my cat's visiting me again. And you can kind of hear that you naturally get an accent there with the click. What's wrong, Pussy? What's wrong? You want to play some heavy metal? Oh, you're actually up on the seat with me now. Sorry about this. Hey, come here. No, you don't want to meet YouTube? Okay. The reason that I've started you off looking at triplets is because we're picking when we move to a new string, and being that there's 3 notes per string, that means that it's nice and consistent to be doing this 1 triplet, 2 triplet, 3 triplet, 4 triplet, or it's nice and even. We get that, synchronizing with the metronome relatively easily. But as soon as we break out the pattern changes, the scale pattern changes, or we change the rhythmic subdivisions we're using, that is how many notes per click, we're not going to be picking with the metronome. We're going to be picking when we move to a new string. And that presents a whole heap of kind of issues that are things that you want to be conscious of and be working towards. Now, if we divide the scale into 16th notes, it means that we're going to be picking on notes that aren't with the metronome. So if we're, when we were doing the hammer-ons, for example, as triplets, we had 1 triplet, 2 triplet, 3 triplet, 4 triplet. And we're so always picking on 1, 2, 3, and 4, which is where the metronome would be clicking. As soon as we break it into 16th notes, we've got 1, E, and 2. So where beat 2 is falling is the hammer-on with the second finger. So I've just got to get my metronome rather than me trying to stamp my foot or bump my head or whatever, and I think it'll really help you get to grips with this shift from triplets to 16th notes using the JustinGuitar Time Trainer metronome, which is way more than a metronome. It's got some excellent tools to help you with your timekeeping, if you don't mind me giving a little plug. Available for Android and iOS devices, and it's cheaper than a posh beer. So it's probably not cheaper than a cheap beer, but definitely cheaper than a posh beer, or depending on where you buy it, I guess. But definitely go and have a look on the App Store. I'll leave a link in the description as well. Anyway, I've set it to 50 beats per minute, okay? So slightly less than 1 click per second. And when we're playing the exercises that we looked at so far in this course, we're playing a picked note and then 2 hammer-ons on each string, because it's 3 notes per string. It really makes it nice and simple to be playing each time when you go to a new string, and there's 3 notes on each string. So I'll just hit play there. 3, 4, so 1 triplet, 2 triplet, 3 triplet. Okay, so that would be the exercises there, just playing as triplets, okay? You should be practicing both the hammer-ons and the flick-off separately, making sure you got that together. Now, when we shift to playing 16th notes, 4 notes per click, obviously it's a little bit faster, so you probably want to practice a little bit above 50 notes, 50 BPM as triplets, probably like 65 or something like that, before you break into doing the 16th notes, which is 4 notes per click. But aside from the feeling, a different feeling of playing 16th notes, because we're only picking when we move to a new string, we won't be picking with the metronome click, and that'll feel weird for many of you. Okay, so I'd recommend only starting with ascending. If we just think about it, first of all, nice and slow, we'd have 4 notes in the first click. So 1, E, and A. So we're going to be playing an up, so I used an upstroke there, on the last 16th note of beat 1. Beat 2 is going to be a hammer-on with the second finger. So you won't be playing with the metronome click, the second one. So 1, E, and A, 2, E, and A. So on the and, we're going to have another pick. I'm using an up pick, but I don't think it really matters. It's a personal preference when you're doing this legato stuff. Some people prefer to use their fingers and all sorts of different ideas. But the important thing is that we're not playing with the metronome click. So 1, E, and 2, E, and 3, E, and 4E and Actually, on beat 4, we're going to be playing with the metronome click. 1E and 2E and 3E and 4E and 1E and 2E and 3E and 4E and 1E and. Okay, so there are points where you're going to be picking with the click, with the metronome click, but you don't want to be thinking about that. You just need to be really feeling nice and even 16th notes, because if you practice doing this, you'll break out of the habit of having to play the metronome click with the pick. Okay, that's really the key thing here. So I'm going to put the metronome on now. I'm just going to go up and down a couple of times. Each time you cycle through it, it'll be different again. Where the metronome falls with the scale will be different, and that's what you want. You want to now that you've practiced doing those legato exercises where you're playing with the click, you need to get rid of that as soon as possible, because it can be a real hindrance if you're always relating playing the pick note with the metronome click. So here we go. Let's do a couple of beats in. 2, 3E and 4E and So it seems after 2 rounds we come back to playing that first note of the scale on the click as well, every 2 rounds. So I think it can be a good idea to have a point like that where you can kind of check that things are working correctly. But the key things are breaking out of the habit of playing a pick with the metronome click, and also working on the 16th note as a feel. It does feel different to triplets as well, and it's something that you want to get used to. Again, you don't want to be stuck in playing triplets or stuck in playing 16th notes. You want to practice both. Another good thing to be practicing the same idea, but to play triplets, but to turn the scale around. So you saw there I was using hammer-ons on the way up and flick-offs on the way back, and I wasn't doubling any notes or playing anything twice. It was just the scale straight up and down. And if you do the same thing of those with triplets again, because unless we play a note twice, we're not going to be picking the down pick on the string change again. It's going to break us out of that. So it's a little harder. I'd recommend getting hip with the 16th note thing first of all, but I'll just show you the same idea, but playing it as triplets again. So here's the click. 1, 2, 3 triplet, 4 triplet, 1 triplet, 2 triplet. So this very first part we're playing with the click. Now it's the middle note. Now it's the little finger note. It's falling with the metronome. Now we're back playing with the click. Now it's the second finger again. Now it's falling on the first finger. Now it's back. We're playing with the click again. Middle note. And so on. So practicing both 16th notes and triplets is a really, really good feel breaker for this stuff to try and work on. Yes, Puss? Sorry. What are you doing? You want to come and say hello? Come on. Come up. Hey? Do you want to come and say hello to the people of YouTube? Come on. Come here. There we go. Look at that. Hey? You're a guitar studio cat, aren't you? Hey? Sorry for this little cat break. I think the dog's been terrorizing the cat, so she doesn't normally come in the studio, but lately she's been hiding out here when I film because the door's closed and the dog can't get in. I think that's the case anyway. Oh, there's some gremlins in the machine today as well. Pro Tools has just turned itself off and I'm having to refilm my outro again. I hate that. Anyway, so practicing as triplets and practicing as 16th notes are both really, really important. So learning to only pick when you move to a new string is the key thing. The other things that you want to be aware of now that you might not have had to have noticed before is trying to keep the notes even dynamically. Now, what that means in practice is that you're going to have to pick softer, because you won't ever really be able to hammer on or flick off as loud as a pick note. So you need to tame the pick note considerably. I've been experimenting myself lately using fingers more than using a pick, because I find that using my finger, especially I'm using flesh now and not nails, the notes are a little quieter, and therefore it becomes a little bit more even. So that's something that you might want to explore on your own as well. Again, that's just a personal preference, a taste thing, the same as whether using down picks or up picks. I'm sure you could figure out a way that was potentially better than another one if you were doing highly technically complex music, but that doesn't have to be the case, and for most people, you don't need to go too crazy on that. Practicing it with a metronome is going to be really, really important and really help you develop your time. Try and stay aware of the subdivisions that you're playing, so you're not rushing ahead of the metronome or lagging too far behind. So one thing that I want to mention about speed as well, and that is that I don't recommend that you spend a lot of time working these exercises up to ludicrous speed. Okay, if you're a really technical guitar player and you are doing really, really intricate, complex music and complex improvisations, there may be benefits to doing that. But what I've found, and actually I spend a lot of time practicing these scales, playing along with the metronome and working on exactly what I'm recommending you don't. And that's part of the reason, because as I've got older and I'm getting shorter of time, I'm not sure that there's as much benefit to doing that as there is to learning a few great licks that use these techniques, that are easily applicable. And that way, when you're doing all of that practice, you're practicing something that you can actually use in your playing, rather than it just being scale exercises, because most people don't want to listen to guys that go and practice scales really fast up and down. You occasionally hear it in kind of some types of music that aren't really my flavor, but I think it's better to work on musicality and musical phrases. And in this early stages, in this Legato primer series, you want to be doing the whole scale, because this is really just the entry point to this as an idea. The idea is that conceptually what's going on with this little series, I'm going to give you next a little motif pattern, a little cycle that you can work on as a way to get a feeling of that dancing fingers, where you're not concentrating on playing really hard or making the flick off really super strong. You want to practice it up to a speed where it feels relaxed. And I think that's an important thing. That'll be the next one. And then after that, I'm going to start looking at some little phrases and licks that you might want to start to incorporate and practice on. Again, you want to be picking the ones that you really like. One last thing I want to mention before I leave you to get on with your practice, and that is to stay aware of the strings ringing out. So, making sure that you got your cover, that your first finger's laying down and muting all of the strings, and that your palms muting the thicker ones, as I talked about in that first lesson in this series. That stuff's really important, and you want to be thinking about it now before we get more technical. Otherwise, it's an additional thing to be worrying about. So you really want to try and develop it so it just becomes a natural thing for you while you're still practicing nice and slow and still concentrating on what you're doing. You should try and just keep your ear out for any strings that are ringing out, and if they are ringing out, work out what had gone wrong. Was your first finger not lifting up properly? Was the tip not touching the thicker string? Was the palm of your picking hand not doing its job? Try and just stay aware of what was going wrong. I think that you'll find that really beneficial if you can keep an eye out or an ear out for that. So do please subscribe to my YouTube channel if you dig what I do. If you are over there and not on the website, remember there'll be a link below in the description. Pop over the website, you can get some tabs and example downloads and even a guitar profile for this that you can play along with. Lots of good stuff over there, so do go and check it out. I really appreciate your support, so hit that like button as well. Leave me a comment, let me know how you're going on the course, and if there's anything else that you'd like me to do of related material. Hopefully see you for more very soon. You take care of yourselves. Bye bye.